Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Hawks Latest, your number one source for news, updates, rumors, opinions, and you guessed it, the latest and the greatest regarding the Atlanta Hawks. I'm your host, Zach Langley, aka Langley ATL. Today, we've got a full slate of updates to break down for you. This is the 113th episode of Hawks Latest, presented by Fan Art, so hopefully you guys have been enjoying the ride. We are really close to the regular season. By the time y'all are seeing this, we're actually 2 days away from opening night. We're going to be taking on the Toronto Raptors. That's the next time the Hawks play basketball. I mean, preseason's over after the loss to the Houston Rockets just a couple nights ago. It was an exciting game for the most part. We saw some of the right stuff. I mean, there were certainly some flaws that were pointed out, and so we'll break down a little bit of that game today. But really, today is going to be mostly about roster moves, and stuff's been happening around the league because there has been some deadlines. Also, I know y'all see me in my Falcons jersey, my Deion Sanders jersey. I'm actually recording this. The time I'm recording this is actually before the Falcons 49ers game. So I know y'all are seeing this the morning after. So hopefully the Falcons don't lose and make me look really stupid in this jersey. I don't know what's going to happen there yet. But there's a lot to cover. We'll start by discussing, how Kobe Buffkin was someone who Atlanta had some promise for. He was a promising young guard. Atlanta actually traded him away though, just like a month ago maybe, and they sent him to the Brooklyn Nets for just cash considerations. Definitely a polarizing move. And so he was actually waived recently actually just yesterday by the Brooklyn Nets. And that's a very surprising move. So we're going to kind of break down why they did that. And also the elevation of Keaton Wallace. The Atlanta Hawks made a significant move with him. And speaking of significant moves, as a direct result of what they did with Wallace, they did something with Caleb Houston, who has had a very interesting contract situation. So we're going to break that all down and give our thoughts on that. Then we're going to highlight Zachary Rizichet, his explosive performance in the final preseason game against the Houston Rockets. I mean, he looked great on all cylinders. So we've got to, completely just talk about that performance. And finally, we'll close with a pretty large update on Trae Young and his contract situation. I mean, that's been a major topic of the offseason, but there have been some significant developments there. What it could mean for the Hawks' future, not just Trae Young's, but for the Atlanta Hawks in general, because he's the franchise star, and so whatever goes on with him certainly has a major impact across the organization. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it and start with the news surrounding Kobe Buffkin, the recent news. So earlier this offseason, as we all know, the Hawks traded former first-round pick Kobe Buffkin to the Brooklyn Nets for cash considerations, which was a move that it raised eyebrows at the time. There were certainly some critics with that trade. A lot of people were wondering why Atlanta didn't at least get like a second round pick out of him. That just kind of proves how low his value was across the league. He didn't play a whole lot for Atlanta in his lone seasons there. Wasn't a whole lot of action. He was dealing with injuries pretty much his entire Atlanta tenure. And realistically, there was no shot for him to get any minutes in the rotation this upcoming season. So the Hawks shipped him away. Brooklyn seemed like an interesting landing spot. But I figured this would be a team like, hey, it's the Brooklyn Nets. Maybe Kobe Buffkin could get some run there and prove what he can bring to an NBA rotation and maybe make the Hawks regret it a little bit. But clearly that is not going to be the case because yesterday the Brooklyn Nets announced that they had actually waived Buffkin. And that's a bit of a surprising move. To put it into perspective, Buffkin was the 15th overall pick in that 2023 NBA draft. So the Hawks have had two recent first-round picks that are just completely out of the NBA right now. And that's pretty crazy. That's very rare because the Hawks have definitely hit on some first-round picks, but some of these picks look pretty bad. I mean, they had AJ Griffin, who had a promising rookie year, but then he retired due to religious reasons. And now they have Kobe Buffkin, who is not even on an NBA roster anymore. And that's not for anything. That's just because he just hasn't found a place where he has truly fit into any sort of rotation. But in his 2-year career with the Hawks, he appeared in 27 NBA games total. That kind of goes into the whole injury-prone thing. I mean, it's been brutal. In those minutes, he hasn't looked great. He averaged 5 points and 1.5 assists in just under 12 minutes per game with really poor shooting splits. That's been the biggest concern. And I know, I found out that during the summer league, when they pretty much gave him the keys to that team and kind of an opportunity to be a leader and showcase some of the things, they weren't necessarily pleased with what they saw just in terms of his shooting. I mean, he was on a short leash. and they wanted to see specific things out of him. And you can't really take summer league games too seriously. But when it is a third-year guard who was selected in the first round, there are certain things you look for in terms of your growth. And he shot the ball very poorly, and he was turning the ball over, and that's not something that Atlanta wanted to see in his third season. And so they definitely felt like it was best to send him to this new location, which is now going to be another new location. He also saw action in 14 G League games with the College Park Skyhawks, who have a phenomenal development program, definitely one of the best in the NBA G League, and in there he was impressive. And this is kind of why Atlanta held on to hope for him for so long, because he definitely put up some solid production in the G League. He averaged 24 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists, and 1.5 steals per game. So there's promise there. That's the thing. And that's why I'm kind of surprised the Brooklyn Nets had actually waived him. The fact that a 22-year-old first-round pick is already out of the NBA, that's rare. That is seriously rare, and it's funny that it's happened to the Hawks twice. And while injuries and health issues played a role in his struggles, it's surprising that the Nets didn't give him kind of an extended look. Meanwhile, though, the Hawks may have addressed this whole backup point guard thing that we have been talking about for quite some time now, in a major way. They just days ago, the team had converted Keaton Wallace's two-way contract into a standard NBA deal. This has been something that I have been saying on this channel. I know y'all probably got sick of hearing me say it because I had mentioned it a lot, that the possibility of Keaton Wallace's deal getting converted from a two-way to a standard contract, especially following the Kobe Buffkin trade, it made a lot of sense. And I tweeted this just the other day. Pretty much his preseason minutes where he was acting as Atlanta's ninth man. Now, I don't know if that's going to carry into the regular season, but regardless, I think those minutes kind of sealed it for me in terms of whether they were going to convert his deal from a two-way to a standard deal. That pretty much sealed it for me. Atlanta really values him. He is way too good to be on a two-way contract. I mean, that's not any sort of disrespect to the guys on two-way contracts, because this next guy we talk about is going to be on a two-way contract, which is it's a great thing. But Keaton Wallace, I think, proved enough in his rookie season to warrant a standard deal in his second NBA season. I mean, Anzi Saleh, Atlanta's general manager, who has kind of made a lot of noise this offseason in his first summer as the organization's top decision maker, he had a lot to say about Keaton Wallace. He said Keaton has earned this opportunity. He embodies the traits we look for with the Atlanta Hawks: relentlessness, adaptability, coachability, and selflessness. Wallace appeared in 31 games last season and had a very underrated rookie year. He wasn't going to get national love just because of the situation, and also, he was on a two-way, but 5 of those games, of those 31 games, were starts. I mean, so when the guard room was very thin, Keaton stepped up in a major way. In those starts, he averaged nearly 14 points, 5 rebounds, and 8.5 assists, and 2.2 steals in 34.6 minutes per game. Those are just in the starts. One performance that really stands out, and I actually asked him about it at Media Day. He said it gave him a lot of confidence throughout the summer, was on April 13th against the Orlando Magic, when Wallace recorded a triple-double. And this wasn't just a borderline triple-double. I mean, he killed it. He had 15 points, 15 assists, and 11 rebounds as a small guard. That is awesome. Those are great numbers. And to top it all off, he had 5 steals, which doesn't count towards the triple-double, but I mean, it's still very impressive. He's the first in franchise history for a stat line of that magnitude. He's the first to put up those type of numbers, and it was the last game of the season, and we see some hilarious stat lines in the last game of the season, but I mean, a stat line like that is it's no coincidence. I mean, Wallace has worked for this. He has that potential. He's someone who can be an effective two-way guard down the line in the NBA, and I'm glad it's here in Atlanta because he is a very promising player. With Wallace secured on that standard deal, the Hawks have stability at the backup point guard now, and with him and Jurisic. Now, while both of them are young, Wallace has some playing experience under his belt in the NBA, so I'll be interested to see how they manage those minutes in the first game of the regular season, which is actually 2 days away against the Toronto Raptors, a Eastern Conference rival. I mean, that is going to be a fun game, a fun way to kind of see how the Atlanta Hawks match up with the rest of the league, and really just the Eastern Conference specifically. It's going to be a fun time, and Keaton Wallace is part of it. We wish Kobe Buffkin the absolute best, though, because it's definitely a little tough to see a guy who the organization put a lot of faith in just get demoted and not be in the league anymore. So we wish him the best, but it's time to move on. And with Wallace's elevation to a standard deal, a new two-way opening was created because he was one of those 3 guys on a two-way deal. and he got moved up to the standard roster, making that Atlanta's 14th roster spot. They actually have one open standard roster spot still. They could fill that. They could also elect to not, and that's probably the more likely scenario. But with that new two-way opening, they're just being two-ways, Atlanta acted pretty quickly, and they actually converted Caleb Houston's Exhibit 10 deal into a two-way contract. We've been wondering if Houston was going to be one of those, final roster spots, but, keeping him with College Park and with the Hawks, I think is a genius move. Caleb Houston is another one of those guys. You can make a legitimate argument that he is too good to be a two-way player as well. But Houston was a former 5-star recruit. I mean, some guy with real potential. He was drafted 32nd overall by the Orlando Magic in 2022. After a lone season at Michigan where, he wasn't amazing, but he showed promise, and that's why Orlando went ahead and took the gamble on him. In Orlando, the thing about Houston was he was primarily known as a three-point specialist, but he was playing for a franchise that, did not really value a whole lot of spacing. I mean, that's not their thing. That's never been their thing. It's still not their thing, even after a whole offseason. They definitely got better, with the acquisition of Desmond Bane and everything, but it's still not their thing. I mean, their two stars operate purely in the mid-range. In Orlando, he averaged 4.1 points per game on 40% from beyond the arc, and is known for over, 85 of his career shot attempts coming from three-point range. I mean, that's a pretty impressive stat. It's kind of wild to see, just a pure specialist like that. But Atlanta can benefit from a skill set like this. He's also, and this is kind of probably the funniest stat in the entire NBA. He's the tallest active player in the NBA to have never dunked a ball in a game. That's ridiculous. He's 6'8". It's a stat that highlights, truly just his reliance on the perimeter scoring and real lack of explosiveness around the rim. I mean, this is a specialist, and Houston is not going to see a major role in this rotation. He really shouldn't. But his floor spacing ability and just ability to knock down that 3-point at a extremely high rate will always be an important tool for Coach Quinn Snyder. I mean, Houston is definitely a more developed player than a guy like Garrison Matthews, and Snyder loved Matthews, and that was someone who got probably more minutes than he should have. But Houston is younger; he has more potential to be a solid defender, just because of his frame. I mean, when you have that frame, you're not always going to be a terrible defender. I mean, it should naturally come at some point. But he can be deployed strategically. I mean, if Atlanta truly needs a three-pointer at the end of a game, I mean, you can put a lineup out there with Caleb Houston and Luke Kennard and Trey and just in Chris Stapps, and just have, kind of like a lethal lineup with so many options to shoot a three from beyond the arc. I mean, Atlanta's going to be in a good position if they ever find themselves down 3 with like 2 seconds left. I mean, they'll call a timeout and get all the snipers in the game. This signing might be the end of the offseason for the Hawks. I mean, I don't think that's ridiculous to say, especially with opening night being 2 days away. It's been a very busy offseason for the Hawks, and it's been super fun to cover. The team really addressed all of their weaknesses. I mean, when you talk about a team that was in the bottom half in the league in three-point percentage last season, I mean, they went out and they got a bunch of shooters. They kind of struggled with some of their depth at the forward position, and they definitely got some of that. They were like, we're never going to have a struggle, in our front court rotation again. So they were like, let's bring in KP and Andy Nafali Dante. And also, I would like to say, because we're not going to really, touch on it much in this video, but the Hawks waived Charles Bassey. And so that was a bit interesting. He's one of those guys who's probably going to get picked up pretty quickly. He may even be picked up by the time this video reaches y'all, because, I mean, he's a talented guy. It's just Dante is definitely better. Atlanta made the right choice there, but they weren't going to keep all of them. But yeah, I mean, by all indications, Atlanta is seriously considered a dark horse contender heading into the regular season. I mean, we've definitely seen some different rankings. Atlanta in some polls are ranked as the team with the best offseason, and, a team that could even represent the Eastern Conference in the finals. Some view them as a little overrated, and, it comes with the territory. And I just want to see how it plays out. I have high hopes for them, and we'll truly see if they can put all of it together once this regular season gets started, and kind of as it progresses into closer to the postseason. That's when you really see what teams are made for and which teams are not. And so next, let's turn to some preseason intrigue, because the preseason is now over, and really all we have to look forward to is the regular season starting. But we definitely need to talk a little bit about this final preseason game, because and while they lost, and you can't really judge too much of what you see in preseason based off of the final score and the box scores. We can, however, look at specific parts of people's games that may have improved. And second year forward, Zachary Rizashay, who had a outstanding rookie year, I mean, very underrated rookie season, he showed why he could take a monumental leap in his second season. He had a standout performance despite the loss. I mean, he was connecting on all cylinders. With Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson resting, which was something that Quinn Snyder announced to all of us in the media just before the game, Rizashay kind of had a little bit of a green light. He was someone who needed to step up. Atlanta wasn't going to keep it close, and they ended up not even really keeping it close, but Atlanta seriously wasn't going to keep it close if Rizashay did not step up and kind of act as like a number one, number two option on offense. But he did. He did, and he played well literally from start to finish. He had the green light to attack that whole game. He made his presence known immediately, like as soon as the game started. And he was grabbing rebounds, using his size to his advantage, and he was pushing the pace. I mean, he looks amazing in transition. He looks like one of the best transition players in the entire NBA. He's making hard cuts to the basket, and that was what was generating a lot of his points, especially early in the game. By the end of the first quarter, I mean, he had already tallied 6 points, 2 rebounds, and a steal. He didn't play that entire quarter, but in his minutes, he definitely showed that real production. But it was his ability to create his own shot that really stood out. That is the specific quality that we are kind of seeing in Rizashay's game, and just in terms of growing, in terms of development. They're wanting him to improve on a bunch of things, but probably a major thing was, him creating on the ball, because that was kind of a thing that held him back a little bit this last season. While he still had a great rookie season, I mean, that was certainly something that could have been improved on. But early in the second quarter, Zachary Rizashay kind of did something we haven't seen out of him. He had the ball at the top of the key, and after a couple crossovers, he had a step back three in the face of the defender, kind of looking like Kevin Durant a little bit, who was on the sideline in this past game. He was on the bench. He didn't play. Just so conveniently, he missed both games against Atlanta in the preseason. He played the other two. I think he's ducking this guy, Zachary Rizashay, who killed it. I mean, he looked great. He showcased a little bit of KD. By the final buzzer, Zachary Rizashay, he finished with 24 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists on 10 of 17 from the floor, including 2 threes. On defense, he added 2 steals and a block, just showcasing his all-around impact, which he truly has. Definitely one of the most underrated players in the NBA. Now, if this development is something that continues into the regular season and really for the next few seasons of Rizashay's career, just watching him get better in this specific department of his game, he could give the Hawks one of the most versatile and dangerous lineups in the NBA. I mean, having a guy at 3 who is primarily a catch and shoot player, but when tasked to get a bucket of his own and maybe even create like a step back 3 like he showcased in this past game, it's going to be lethal. I mean, this adds a whole nother element to his game and the game of the Atlanta Hawks. So hopefully this is something that he can maintain a little bit, and I don't see why he can't, because I mean, he's just 20 years old and his game is still continuing to grow by the day. So now let's talk about Trae Young. Because we have been talking about this whole contract situation for quite some time, and despite ongoing speculation that this may change, a contract extension before the start of the season is not in the cards. The Athletic reported that it will not get done before the regular season begins, and that's not surprising given everything that we have heard, everything that's been building up over the course of the offseason. The 27-year-old All-Star is entering the final guaranteed year of his current deal, making $46 million this upcoming season, with a $49 million player option in 2026-27. He can opt out of that contract and become a unrestricted free agent. That is always a possibility. I don't know if it'll get to that point, but if it does, Atlanta can offer him a good bit, and I do think at the end of the day he will stay in Atlanta. But this is an interesting situation interesting, just kind of thing to follow. As we progress into the season, he's eligible for a 4-year, $229 million max extension, but it's clear that both sides are truly taking their time. At Hawks Media Day, probably also a month ago, Young downplayed contract discussions. I mean, it's been a few weeks ago, but he was asked about if he was disappointed, and he said he wasn't really disappointed. He instead was saying that he just wanted to focus on the team's composition and upcoming season, just focusing on his teammates, the leader that he has truly become over his career in the NBA. That has really improved in recent years, and he instead of being I am disappointed that I wasn't extended, he chose to focus on on the bigger picture, which it's great to see from him. But the front office has been very proactive this offseason in surrounding him with talent. I mean, they haven't shied away from that. They've shied away from it in previous years, but not Anzi Saleh, who has taken over. And, in his first summer as the general manager, I mean, he was playing no games. I mean, he wanted to prove to Trae Young that they're trying to build a winner. I mean, and not like completely mess up their timeline, but bring in veterans that can add to this core and really just benefit him. The front, I mean, like I said, Kristaps Porzingis, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Luke Kennard, and already complimenting. I mean, the core that they've already built of Young and Jalen Johnson and Dyson Daniels, Zachary Rizichet, Onyeka Okongwu. But adding all of those guys just kind of adds another element where it provides flexibility, while also putting them into contender status. Meanwhile, though, and this isn't completely relating to the topic, but Dyson Daniels, who was last season's most improved player, an NBA steals leader, is facing his own contract timeline. And it's actually today that is the final day that he is extension eligible. So if obviously this doesn't mean Dyson Daniels is going to leave Atlanta next summer, because he will be a restricted free agent. But if the Hawks and Daniels don't come to an agreement today, which is the final day that he can sign that extension in the offseason, then he will hit restricted free agency next summer, giving everyone the chance to offer him what they want. But no matter what the contract is, Atlanta will have the chance to match. And I can more than assume that they will. I mean, they completely value Dyson Daniels. This isn't someone that they're just going to let walk. They'll match any offer. We just hope it doesn't get into like the $40 million range. Daniels' camp is certainly insistent on that 5-year, $150 million contract. And at this point, I think they should give it to him. But we'll see if they do by the end of the day. I don't think it'll get done, but I would seriously like it to. I think you can go ahead and lock him up for that number. I think if you can, you certainly would like to. This kind of emphasizes the importance of Hawks moves to maintain that roster flexibility, because if they have to sign Daniels to a even larger number this upcoming offseason, they will be able to regardless, and they're going to be able to compete for a championship as early as next season. So a lot of good things going on. So to recap today's episode, the Hawks have said goodbye to Kobe Buffkin officially, and while that deal has been official for quite some time, the Brooklyn Nets just waived him, and so we're wishing Kobe Buffkin the best. They elevated Keaton Wallace to a standard deal, which is a move that has kind of been brewing for quite some time, but I'm glad to see it is officially done. They've also made Caleb Houston an official roster player. He's going to be on a two-way contract, while just being on Exhibit 10 this whole offseason. It's good to see him finally on the roster in some way. And we're seeing second-year forward Zachary Rizichet emerge as a legitimate scoring threat in front of our eyes. And it's been awesome watching his development as an NBA player. It's only going to continue to get better. And this sophomore season could be very special. On the contract front, Trae Young remains focused on the season rather than on an extension. Both sides are willing to be patient about that. And the future of Dyson Daniels kind of remains a key storyline as we progress into the regular season. Maybe we see a extension get done today. I don't know. It's a possibility. But Atlanta's going to enter the 2025-26 season with a deeper, more versatile roster than ever before. I mean, with floor spacing, wing depth, veteran leadership addressed really in a major way, the Hawks could very well surprise in the Eastern Conference and make a very strong push towards the playoffs and maybe an NBA title. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Hawks Latest. If you enjoyed today's breakdown, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single update here on the channel. We're going to be pumping out videos every single day, keeping you guys informed on the latest and the greatest regarding the Atlanta Hawks. But let me know down below. I mean, what do you think about Zachary Rizichet's preseason performance? Let me know your thoughts on the Trae Young and Dyson Daniels contract situations. And let me know what you think about the Nets waiving Kobe Buffkin and the Hawks bringing up Keaton Wallace and Caleb Houston. I mean, a lot going on with the team, a lot to cover. Thank you guys for watching, though, once again. I'm Zach Langley, a.k.a. Langley ATL, and I'll see you guys next time.